Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into survivability design.
Sounds intriguing.
We're going to be looking at a research paper called Survivability Design in Hostile Environments. And we're going to be talking about how the strategies used by squids, military ships, defense startups, and even global supply chains share a common thread.
Interesting. I like it already. Because it's kind of like looking at how these entities face different threats in totally different environments.
Right.
And yet they rely on very similar principles.
Exactly. And that's where this ERP model, which is what this research paper is about, efficiency, resilience, and prominence.
Right.
This framework helps us understand how to navigate these trade-offs.
And the balance between them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think we can all relate to in our own lives, right? Because we're constantly making decisions where we have to balance, how efficiently we use our time versus building up resilience and then also making sure that we're visible.
Yeah.
And, putting ourselves out there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, how much do we want to stand out?
Right.
Or do we need to lay low? Like a lot of this stuff is about understanding your environment and then making the right trade-offs.
And I think a creature that has truly mastered this balancing act is the squid. They inhabit a world where being seen by the wrong eyes can literally mean the difference between life and death.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Predation is huge for a lot of species, right? And squids are no exception. That's why they've got like this whole arsenal of adaptations to avoid ending up as someone's lunch.
It's true. It's true. And they do such a good job of it, too. I mean, their camouflage is remarkable.
Oh, yeah.
But what I find really intriguing is this prominence dilemma that they face. They need to be visible enough to attract mates, but not so visible.
Yeah.
That they become easy targets.
Totally. Like, that superb bird of paradise.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great example of this. It spends, like, most of its time blending into the foliage with its, like, dull plumage. But then, when it's time to attract a mate, boom, it's like this stunning display of, like, electric blue feathers.
Oh, wow.
So strategic, right?
Like, it knows when to be seen and when to lay low.
And when to make a statement.
Exactly.
And it makes you realize that it's not just about being invisible. Sometimes strategic visibility can be the key to success.
And that's a skill that transcends the natural world for sure. In fact, it's a principle that's equally relevant in the design of military ships.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Where the stakes are incredibly high.
Oh, absolutely. They're constantly trying to balance efficiency, resilience, and prominence. I mean, I think you'd be fast, feel efficient.
Right.
But also able to withstand, like, enemy attacks and, just the harsh conditions out at sea.
Yeah, and let's not forget the element of stealth. I mean, being invisible to the enemy is a huge advantage in naval warfare.
It is. It is. And that's where things get really interesting. The research mentions the littoral combat ship.
Okay.
It was designed for speed and agility, specifically in coastal waters. But this emphasis on speed, it came at a cost. They had to potentially compromise the whole strength, which means it might be less resilient to certain types of attacks.
So it's like a classic trade-off, right? Speed versus resilience.
Yeah.
Like choosing between a nimble sports car and a rugged off-road vehicle.
Right.
Each one excels in different environments.
Exactly.
What other trade-offs do naval designers have to grapple with?
Well, material selection is huge. The research highlights how aluminum alloys, while they're lighter and cheaper than steel, they might be more susceptible to damage from explosions or like high impact collisions. So again, it's this balancing act, weighing the benefits against the potential vulnerabilities.
Yeah. Reminds me of choosing a phone case.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like you could go for that sleek, lightweight one, but that bulkier, impact resistant one is probably the safer bet. If you're prone to dropping your phone.
Right, right. You'd rather have that protection.
Exactly. There's that efficiency-resilience trade-off, again, playing out in our everyday decisions.
It's everywhere.
It really is.
And speaking of strategic visibility,
the
use of camouflage in naval warfare offers some really fascinating insights.
Oh, yeah.
During World War II, ships used a technique called dazzle painting.
Oh, right. To like confuse the U-boats.
Exactly. Especially those German U-boats. They needed to make it difficult for them to figure out the ship's size, speed, and even its direction.
It's so cool. It's like they're using these bold geometric patterns to create this visual deception.
Exactly.
That makes it harder for the submarines to target them.
It works surprisingly well.
Yeah.
Like, it just shows you how important it is to really think about how you're being perceived, even in a battlefield situation.
It's like they're using prominence in this really unexpected way to increase survivability.
Yeah. That's like sometimes you need to stand out to blend in.
Right.
You know?
It's counterintuitive.
Exactly.
But it works.
It does. And this whole discussion about efficiency, resilience, and prominence, it got me thinking about the challenges faced by defense startups.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly those navigating the so-called valley of death.
Right, where they're dealing with limited funding, intense competition, and often a ton of government bureaucracy.
Oh, yeah. It's a tough landscape.
It really is. Yeah. And so for these startups, prominence presents kind of a unique dilemma. They need to attract investors and customers.
Right.
But they also need to protect their intellectual property from competitors.
Exactly. It's a fine line to walk.
It is. So how do they find that balance?
Well, that's where the U.S. Air Force's approach to SBIR, STTR funding comes in.
Okay. Can you explain what SBR, STTR is?
Sure. So SBR stands for Small Business Innovation Research.
Okay.
And STTR is Small Business Technology Transfer.
Okay.
These programs are designed to fund research and development, and the Air Force has been using them to specifically address this visibility paradox that defense startups often face.
And how are they doing that?
They're using what's called an open topic approach.
Okay.
So instead of requiring startups to tailor their proposals to very specific government requirements, they're allowing for a broader range of innovations.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's less about checking off boxes and more about fostering creativity.
I like that.
Yeah, and seeing what emerges. And this combined with organizations like AFWARES, it helps connect these startups with potential customers and investors within the Air Force.
That's cool.
So they're raising their profile among the right audience.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's like they're creating a more supportive ecosystem for these startups.
Exactly.
Allowing them to gain some traction without necessarily having to reveal all their secrets too early.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
I like it.
You know, it encourages innovation while also addressing the very real needs of the Air Force.
It's great.
But this conversation about efficiency, resilience, and prominence, it got me thinking about the global supply chain issues that we've all been experiencing lately.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, the pandemic.
Yeah.
It really exposed just how fragile some of these systems are.
It totally did.
Especially those that were designed for efficiency, but not necessarily resilience.
And we all felt it, too, with the empty grocery store shelves and the delayed packages.
Exactly.
There's a good reminder that those are not just inconveniences. Those disruptions highlight just how fragile some of the systems we rely on are.
Right. And it showed us the importance of that just-in-case mentality, like having backup plans and diversifying your sources.
Absolutely.
Just in case something happens, you're prepared.
That's smart.
And, you know, the Strategic National Stockpile, the SNS.
Okay.
It's a good example of how this balance can be mismanaged.
The Strategic National Stockpile. That was our reserve of medical supplies, right?
Yeah. It was supposed to be ready for a crisis.
And it wasn't.
Well, in theory it was, but it turned out that in trying to keep it a secret, you know, for security reasons, like not revealing the locations or the contents, they actually made it harder to get to the supplies when they were really needed.
It's like by making it less prominent, they actually made it less effective.
Exactly. It's such a classic example of how these trade-offs can backfire.
Yeah. If you don't consider all the angles, you can end up shooting yourself in the foot.
It's true.
So I guess the lesson here is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
It's about constantly reassessing and adapting
that balance
to the specific situation.
and being flexible.
So if we think back to everything we've talked about, from the squids to the warships to the defense startups, what are some key takeaways? What have we learned?
I think the biggest one is that you need to understand the threats. What are you actually facing?
Makes sense.
Is it competition?
Right.
Is it a lack of resources? Is it a global pandemic? You need to figure out what's the biggest threat.
And then prioritize.
Exactly. And once you know the threats, then you can start thinking about how to adjust your efficiency, your resilience, and your prominence.
Right.
Sometimes you need to be more efficient. Sometimes you need to be more resilient. And sometimes you need to be more visible.
And sometimes you need to be invisible.
Exactly.
It's about knowing when to do what.
It is. And it's about being able to adapt.
Because things change.
They do. All the time.
And if you can't adapt,
you're in trouble.
You're sunk.
Pretty much.
Which makes me think about that bird of paradise again.
Oh, yeah.
The one that's got those amazing blue feathers. It knows when to blend in and when to stand out.
It's all about timing.
So how do we do that? How do we figure out when it's our time to shine? That's
a great question. And I think it starts with understanding our own strengths.
Okay.
What are we good at? What makes us unique?
Will you see those strengths to get noticed?
For the right reason.
Exactly. It's like finding our own version of those blue feathers and knowing when to show them off.
Love it.
Well, this has been fascinating.
It has.
I've learned a lot.
I knew.
And I hope our listeners have too. So if you're out there and you're facing a challenge, think about the squids. Think about the warships. Think about those defense startups. What can you learn from them? How can you use those lessons to survive and thrive in your own hostile environment?
And don't forget to find your blue feathers.
Yes. Show the world what you're made of. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.